1, live.
At this time, I want you to join in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the Sumter School District October 25th, 2021 Board of Trustees meeting. This meeting is held in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. The news media has been notified and a copy of the agenda has been made available to the public. This meeting is open to the public but will be limited to first come, first served seating due to COVID-19. All persons wishing to attend the meeting by virtual means may do so via YouTube Sumter School District Board Meeting and Sumter School District Facebook page. Mission. The mission of Sumter School District is to equip students to be responsible, successful, and productive citizens in a global society. Vision. Sumter School District develops and cultivates competitive students who embrace diversity, acts responsibly, and contribute positively to society. Our board members are yours truly, Barbara Jackson, Area 7 Chairwoman, Dr. J. Frank Baker, Seat 8, Vice Chair, Dr. Darrell McGaney, Area 5, the Clerk, Mr. Brian Alston, Area 1, Mrs. Cheryl Ray, Area 2, Mr. Matthew McLeod, Area 3, Dr. Johnny B. Hilton, Area 4, Dr. Gloria Lee, Area 6, Dr. Sean Reagan, Seat 9, Mrs. Robin Mills, Deputy Director of Installation Support, Shore Air Force Base Representative, Dr. Martin Knox, the Superintendent, Amy Hanson, Administrative Manager, and Ms. Connie Jackson, the Attorney for Halligan, Mahoney, and Williams. This meeting is called to order. This meeting is now called to order. Good evening to our persons, in-person viewers, participants, and virtual attendees. It is good to have you join us this evening. We're so delighted that you made time to be here with us. The agenda approval, with no objections, the agenda will stand approved as written. Hearing none, the agenda is approved. We're down to 3.1, our announcements. Trustees, are there any announcements? If not, I have one. I wanted to just say to the principal, October is a continuation of Principal Appreciation Month. And I'd just like to say that we appreciate all of you, your hard work, your leadership, and everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. We do appreciate you, and we don't want you to think not one time that we don't, because everything that you do is for the good of our children, and that's what we are focusing on. I'd also like to attend an activity on Thursday night down at Trinity, the HYPE program, Sumter School District was recognized there. And we had students from Lamara Percussion Ensemble, Alice Drive Middle and Elementary. We had students participating from Wilder, as well as R.E. Davis. It was a very worthwhile program. And our own Dr. Martin Knox was recognized and given a plaque for her leadership and participation in all that she does for Sumter School District. Do we have any other announcements or communication? Yes, Dr. Lee.
Yes, Chairwoman. I'm very grateful to say I attended the Risky Business training. It started on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It was a very educational program. During the program, there was a lot of people that are entertained with different areas from the Clarendon County area, different Greenville, Spartanburg, and I was very grateful to meet them. And a lot of them gave kudos to you, Dr. Martin Knox, for your great leadership in how you have led the Sumter district and the positive way you led it throughout the COVID. So I want to make sure I share that with you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lee. Any other? And I think we had some others to go along with you to that Risky Business, did we not? Dr. McGaney and Mrs. Ray? You were at Risky Business. So we had 3 of our board members attending that particular conference. Okay, thank you. Are there any other announcements? Okay, so if not, we are going to move on to committee reports and by the chairpersons. And I'll go first with the Advisory Council Committee. The Citizen Advisory Committee met on October 14th at Crestwood High School. We had a very productive meeting and received reports from the board standing committees, all of them, the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee, as well as a brief strategic plan session and the SWOT analysis. The Advisory Council will meet again on February 22nd. In the meantime, we ask that you please watch the regular viewings and participation that's posted or that's going on, and all committee meetings on when your schedule allows.
Dr. Jackson, that's the advisory committee will meet in February 2022, but we don't have a date.
Okay, 2022, yeah, but the date has not been extended. Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, thank you, Ms. Hanson. And I just want to remind everyone that all board and committee meeting recordings are available via the Sumter School District Board meetings and the district Facebook page. So please, at this time, will our Facilities Committee, which you, Dr. Reagan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As stated in our last board meeting that we had, this committee has met a total of 3 times, with our first meeting being March the 3rd, 2021. And our most recent meeting that we just had last was September the 29th. We're scheduled for our current meeting coming up November the 3rd, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. And again, the work ahead of this committee currently revolves around various aspects of the district's facilities and provides as much advice from this committee to the district administration. And currently our school site visits frequently receiving updates from the district administration on facilities of the district, as well as updates concerning our district's current energy saving program or projects are our top priorities at this particular time for the committee. And I want to say thank you to the subcommittee members as well as the committee members for attending the meetings, but not only that, attending those places in which we're traveling while we're doing our school site visits. And so far, we've already traveled to the Sumter Academy for Support and Intervention, R.E. Davis College Preparatory School, Alice Drive Elementary, Alice Drive Middle, Willow Drive Elementary, Manchester Elementary, and Furman Middle School. So we've all, this committee has made it to all of those schools thus far. And again, we're just doing the walkthroughs, and as we do those walkthroughs of these facilities in which we had the opportunity to visit already, collectively we've noticed the age of those facilities. Those are some of the things that we've been pointing out. However, some of them were built in the 50s, early 60s, and then some of the renovations, and you can see it on the plaques when you walk inside of the school, that some of those buildings are of age, and some of them have not been really renovated since the early 2000s. So we're observing all of that as we're walking and talking with the district administration. And again, thank you, and this concludes the facilities report at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Gray.
Thank you.
Okay, the Finance Committee.
All right, the Finance Committee met on Monday, October 4th, and we also shared with the Citizens Advisory Committee what we had been going over. We have a tentative meeting set for November 4th at 6 p.m. To meet with the Finance Committee at that time.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Ray, for that report. We're down now to the Policy Committee.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. The Policy Committee met on October 18th and reviewed policies to be brought forward for first readings. Those policies include ADA, District Goals and Objectives, ADD, Face Coverings, IHAC, Social Studies Education, and KLGA, School Resource Officers. Trustees received the updates with the meeting material. Updates to the following administrative rules were reviewed as well. IKA-R, Grading Assessment Systems, and IKF-R, Graduation. Additional discussion and review with the Policy Committee will continue regarding educational equity and the Open Carry with Training Act. That concludes the Policy Committee report for tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Austin. All righty, we're now down to the Transportation Study Ad Hoc Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Board of Trustees will receive tonight an update from Mr. Cropper regarding realignment at tonight's meeting, and the Transportation Study Ad Hoc Committee will meet on this Thursday at 6 p.m. here at the district office.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. All righty, we're now down to our legislative update. Dr. Hilton?
No report this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton. All right, we're down to 3.4, Sumter School District Realignment School Board Update. I'd like to welcome Mr. Cropper, and thank you for being with us tonight. And Dr. Baker, did you have anything you want to say?
Nope, turn it straight over to Mr. Cropper.
So, Mr. Cropper, you may proceed.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson and members of the board. Dr. Martin Knox, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm just here to give you a quick update and a preview of the meeting this coming Thursday. I can see on your walls that the plot maps that I had delivered to the board have made it, and I see them on the wall there. We have developed 2 modified draft options in anticipation for this Thursday. We've modified both options that we originally came to the committee with the last meeting. And we've made changes to the maps based off of ongoing study and review of the maps, and also comments from the community. We've received about 30 comments so far in an online form from the community up to date, and we do expect that to increase, especially when we start getting into the public information session process in December. But the focus of the next committee meeting is to share these 2 revised draft options with the committee, go over some of the material and the maps, and then we've also are developing a scoring mechanism to evaluate the options as it relates to the criteria, and so that it's an objective look and to measure how the current zones adhere to the criteria, and then how each option adheres to the criteria, and giving them scores to help understand that. So that'll be helpful. It's helped other communities, and it'll be helpful, I believe, for this committee and the public to further understand how the options are impacting communities. And so our next meeting is this Thursday at 6 p.m. and looking forward to meeting and discussing with everybody Really, the focus is preparation for a December 14th public information session. So we've got this meeting this Thursday and one more after that before we go to the public in December to share some options with the public. And that is about all I have for now, unless there are any questions or anything else that I can help answer. But I appreciate the opportunity to give you guys a quick update on our progress.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Yes, Dr. Hilton.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Mr. Cropper, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, sir.
I have some questions related to the realignment criteria, if I may, and some other questions as well. So the criteria that the board approved for this study, are these criteria essentially the same that you use for all your realignment studies?
They are, they do change from time to time, from place to place, but these criteria are very commonly used in other processes. They are what you see that other school districts use to evaluate boundaries. Yes, sir.
So your organization developed these criteria?
We provided these criteria to the district for consideration based off of criteria that we've seen and used over the last 15, 20 years. Some of them have been criteria that we have learned from as we continue to study and do realignment studies. So I wouldn't say that we necessarily developed all of these. We basically use these in a lot of processes, and these are the ones that we brought to the board for consideration. Yes, sir.
Well, did you receive any input from anybody on the administration or school board members or committee members regarding these criteria?
We presented them to the board for consideration. I don't believe we had any, there were some questions and clarification about the criteria, but I don't think there were any conversations about changing or removing or adding any criteria items.
Okay, so when you apply this criteria, are there weightings for the criteria in an algorithm? Well, let me ask this: are the maps drawn using a computer algorithm? And if so, who sets the weightings for these criteria in the computer algorithm?
So to answer your question, the maps are drawn with geographic information systems. So we have a mapping system that enables us to draw the map and understand what the impact is of moving zone lines. But they are done manually by, the initial maps were drafted manually by myself and my staff. And it's not a nature of plugging in some criteria and then having the map automatically spit out options. It's something that we evaluate. We have a handful of criteria that we're looking at, and as we draw the map, we look at some of the statistics that result from drawing a particular option, and we assess, are we getting closer to adhering to that criteria in any particular criteria item, or are we drawing further away? In terms of weighting, the criteria are typically evaluated as all criteria are given equal weights, and the best plan for the district will be one that adheres to the criteria as a whole as best as possible. We can't focus on only one piece of the criteria because then we start to deviate further from the others. And so we are evaluating all the criteria holistically. We do understand that this is, a lot of this was driven by the transportation element. And so we have been looking at that, and we're working with the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee. So transportation is driving some of was the driving force for looking at realignment, and then as well as trying to evaluate the city and the county as a whole and developing a set of options that really look at and are designed with the county as a whole in mind, as opposed to what they currently are, which are the old former city zones and the former county zones.
Well, so the first of the criteria is to balance utilization. So why is that first? And you've already said it doesn't carry more weight, but when I look at these maps, it appears to me that these designs call for a balancing of utilization as their primary focus. So can you speak to that?
Sure. So balancing building utilization is typically something that's always a part of a large component of this work, in that there are some schools that are underutilized and others that are heavier utilized. We've been looking at utilization rates in terms of percent capacity, and also been looking at the number of students in each building. So looking at how many kids are estimated to be in each building, as well as the percent full of the building. And not to say that as we continue to study the options with the committee and with members of the public, that we can't make other adjustments to better align with other criteria that may cause a greater imbalance in utilization. But utilization is part of what we are looking at as one of the criteria.
Well, yes, sir, and as you alluded to, it was my thought, it was my understanding that when we started this process, our goal was to solve some transportation problems, and that's why this task was assigned to the Transportation Committee, to solve these issues like students passing one school and going to another school. But as I look at these maps and the recommendations that these maps are going to bring about, or the changes that these maps are going to bring about, it appears it goes far beyond transportation issues. And I'll just be honest with you, I'm concerned that we may be creating more problems than we're solving. We set out to solve some transportation problems, but I'm concerned that as I look at these enrollment statistics, I took a good look at these charts that you included in here, and these charts are very informative, even more so than the maps. Because when I look at the live-in, live-out data, it seems that there are significant differences between some of our schools. Some schools have high live-in, some schools have high live-out and attend in, and some have high live-in and attend out. And I assume this, and I attribute this to, in the past, we've had an open enrollment policy, and parents have requested that their child be attend a school different from the area they live in. So, do you agree that that's probably what causes these disparities between the live-in, attend-out issues between one school and the other, is parental requests, open enrollment, and such as that, parental choice?
Yes, sir. I think that some of that is, some of the imbalances in enrollment and utilization is driven by parental choice and also the district's considerations for allowing transfer requests. That definitely is a factor that causes some imbalances in utilization currently. The realignment is looking at one of the assumptions is if you live in a zone, as we estimate enrollment, if you live in that zone, you would go to the school you're zoned to. But there is flexibility with the utilization of your schools. There is a lot of space available in most of your schools that if the district did choose to still enable some transfer policy, you would have the ability to still allow students to enroll, but it would create, enroll from out of zone, but it would create that imbalance in some utilization and enrollment of schools that you currently are experiencing.
Yes, sir. So
Let just one moment. Anyone else, someone else ask a question, because they may ask a question that you have.
sure, if I can have another turn.
All right, you may come back to you. Do we have anyone else with any questions for Mr. Parker? I'd like to give others an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Doctor.
I do have a question, but I need to try to finish.
Any other than Dr. McGill? Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Hill.
Thank you. So we've said that this, live-in, attend-out is based probably because of parental choice and request to go to a different school. So a concern I have is when I look at the proposed plan, it appears that some of the schools that have a high percentage of live-in, attend-out students will have that total number of students that be zoned for them will increase significantly because of the maps. In other words, we've got schools that have a high percent or a higher percentage of kids that are, parents that are requesting that those kids not go to that school but go to another school. Well, when I look at the charts that you provided, there are some of these schools that that these lines are gonna put a bunch of kids back in the same school that parents are requesting that they not go there. And likewise, some of the schools that have a high number of live-out, attend-in students, that are schools that parents request that the kids go there. They live in school B, but they want to go to school A. Your plan will have school A that the people want to go to have fewer students, and you're sending them out somewhere else. So to me, this plan is contrary to what parents have been requesting and wanting their kids to go to these various schools. So why would we want to put more live-in students in a school where the parents are requesting that the kids not go there? Or why would we want to decrease the number of students in a school where the parents are requesting that their kids do go there? I see a conflict of a logic there. It's irrational to me to develop a plan that does that.
Well, I would say that as we have been studying the district and looking at your enrollment trends, one of our assumptions are, and it's common that districts ask this, is to assume that if you live in a zone, you're zoned to that school. And sometimes it helps manage, in terms of managing the schools, and when you're planning zones like we are for realignment, focusing on the live-in enrollment really helps you to establish that balance of the criteria that we're looking at as it relates to utilization, to transportation distance, to demographics, and having them be as equitable as possible. And you know, these realignment options do assume that you live in a zone that you would go to that school, and the assumption is that the district would not openly allow transfer requests as much as they may right now to better manage the enrollment of the students within the students within each zone. And as we look at the live-in populations with each zone, we're also assuming that the students live in that zone, and for the basis of realignment, it really establishes a foundation for the zone, so that if a student in that area wants to go to their home school, they've got a seat there. And then on top of that, you layer on transfers and requests as you wish. But it's better to have a good foundation of zones that are equitable as it relates to the population that lives in each area, and then on top of that, layering on open enrollment and policy things, as opposed to accounting for ins and outflows, especially if they're not balanced from school to school, and then essentially not providing enough space for students maybe in a zone that live there because there may be a large number coming in from out of zone. And so we had discussed with the board last time about our methodology, and with the ad hoc committee about our methodology, and looking at building this foundation for zones based off of the students that live in each area. And there was no opposition to that at the time, but if you have any specific observations of schools that give you concern and things like that, those are all comments that, and information that we can study and see how we can adapt the zones to make sure that we align with our objectives and our criteria. And keep in mind, these maps are still in very draft form. The committee will have only seen these for the second time this Thursday, and we've got a long ways to go between now and March or April of next year. It's the zones, I imagine, are subject to change and new ones created. But if even you as a board member have any comments right now about specific numbers or specific schools that give you concern, we can look at that. We always stay focused on making changes if it better adheres to our criteria and our tasks as a whole, and not making a change that deviates us further. But we're still in the process of taking everything in and listening and hearing what comments are said, and as the maps continue to evolve.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions, if I may, please.
Excuse me, we, two more questions, please, and then we'll get to the others. I'll ask that you just maybe discuss or submit them to the Transportation Committee, and then they could just make sure that they're given to him.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we could,
Okay.
move on.
So Mr. Crawford,
Yes, sir.
the current proposal calls for almost half of our high school students, 47% in one plan, 48% in another plan, to attend a different high school than they are currently zoned for. The live-in and attend-out numbers for our high schools are very low, which means most kids are going to the high school they live in. That tells me that the vast majorities of families and students are happy where they go into school. So why would we want to send half of our high school students to some other schools? The ratios of live-in, attend-out are 6, 13, and 16% currently, based on your own data that you provided to us. So that means that the vast majority of people are attending the school they live in the high school, they're happy there. Why would we want to approve a plan that's going to send half our students to a different high school? That logic escapes me.
I think some of the real reason why we're seeing the greatest impact in the high schools and middle schools is that is really looking at the transportation component. If you look at the current zones, you have the Sumter High School zone in the middle of the county, and then your other high schools wrap around Sumter, around the city. And as part of our task, we're looking at your zones holistically with the whole county and city combined in mind. The current zones that you have right now, as you recall, have not been modified since before the city and the county were separate school districts. And so in looking at trying to assign students close to their home as well as the other criteria, you'll see that there are significant changes being made to try to give you a look from Sumter County as a whole, and that the result of it is moving a lot of students, and a lot of it's trying to undo some of the wraparound nature of some of your zones, that the other outside zones wrapping around the city, just because they were designed before the city and the county were consolidated.
Yes, sir, I hear what you're saying. My last question is, I'm concerned about, I had someone call me and say that they were very upset that their home was going to be zoned for another school because they felt it was going to have a negative impact on the real estate resale value of their home. Because many people buy a house depending on what school that house is situated in. And so when we start doing these zones around, a house that has been in school zone A is now gonna be in school zone B. And, you know, perception is everything, and some people perceive that school zone A is a better place to live and better place to have your kids go to school than school zone B, and the real estate values there's a distinct possibility that real estate values gonna go down on their homes when we move their house from this school zone to that school zone. I just think that when we're looking at these criteria, that maybe we need to prioritize minimum impact on students as opposed to utilization. And it looks to me like what we're focusing on is utilization, maximizing utilization as opposed to minimizing student impact. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton. And thank you, Mr. Cropper, for your being with us tonight. We do appreciate you, and we appreciate your presentation to the board.
Thank you, ma'am.
We're now down
Madam Chair,
to,
Reverend Gaines has a question.
oh, yes, Dr. McGinn?
I had a question for Mr. Cropper.
Oh, I said it was one when you yield to him, okay. Mr. Cropper?
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. McGinn has a question for you, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Cropper, with everyone anticipating the lines from the legislators, and we don't know how these lines are going to fall from the legislators, how would their lines impact your work and your drafts, assuming that at some point, maybe in the next couple of months, when the legislators get through with the lines, you don't, to me, I think some criteria may change, but can you share with me how would that impact what you've already done?
Well, I'm not looking at other political geographies as part of this of our study. So from my perspective, I'm looking at this objectively and as a third party and just studying it with the focus of the criteria and objectives. And so regardless of what those line changes become, what they are now or what they become, would not have any impact from my standpoint in terms of how the zone lines would be shaped, just because it's not something that is part of my analysis.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you correctly, then it's not going to impact what you've already done thus far.
I don't anticipate it, no, sir. And any other political redistricting or any other political boundary changes that may occur, I'm not even focused on that. I'm solely focused on the school attendance boundaries for Sumter School District.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
All right, thank you, Dr. McGaney, and thank you again, Mr. Cropper. We do appreciate you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, now we're down to the superintendent's report. The next item on the agenda, Dr. Martin Knox, would you please proceed with the items listed in your section, 4.1 through 4.5.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Dr. Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Baker, members of the Sumter School District Board, and members of the Sumter School District community. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Tanya Addison, who serves as the Coordinator of Attendance and MTSS for Sumter School District. And at this time, Ms. Addison will share with you information as it pertains to a conversation that we've engaged in regarding student attendance. So at this time, Ms. Addison.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Tell them we can hear her, y'all.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Well, good afternoon, Dr. Jackson, members of the board, and Dr. Martin Knox, our superintendent. The purpose of this presentation is to provide a brief overview of the state attendance laws and our implementation of them, along with our systems of support. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that all of our students attend school regularly because we understand that greater attendance improves students' academic progress. And all of our systems are designed to support families with this effort. State law requires all children between the ages of 5 and 17 to attend school regularly, and that includes a public or a private school or an approved association for homeschool instruction. A student is present when they are actually in school, on medical homebound, working through an approved virtual option, or is present at a student activity authorized by their school. We recognize, however, that absences are inevitable, and it is important that everyone understands the difference between an excused and an unexcused absence. Excused absences includes, but are not limited to, the illness of a student, medical appointments, funeral attendance, appearances in court, the observance of religious holidays or ceremonies, quarantine if the student is medically unable to complete their assignments. During the quarantine period, all students are marked virtually present unless they are unable to complete assignments. When a student indicates that they are unable to complete assignments because they may have been diagnosed with a positive test for COVID, those excuses will become an excused absence. An unexcused absence includes, but is not limited to, any absence that is verified or unverified by the parent and does not meet the criteria for an excused absence. When students are absent because of medical appointments or parents or siblings, those are unexcused, as well as family vacations, parent transportation issues. We do realize that we have experienced some transportation issues with our buses, so potential absences from our bus transportation have been excused already. Truancy and chronic absenteeism is reported to the State Department quarterly. The current reporting window will close November 12th. And truancy refers to a student between the ages of 6 and 17 who has accumulated 3 consecutive or a total of 5 or more unexcused absences. Truancy only refers to full day absences, unexcused absences. Excused absences, suspensions, early dismissals, and late arrivals do not count towards truancy. Unlike truancy, chronic absenteeism refers to all absences, excused, unexcused, suspensions, early dismissals, and late arrivals. Chronic absenteeism refers to any student in grades K through 12 who misses 50% or more of the school day for any reason, and for more than 10% of the enrollment period. For example, in an elementary school with 6 periods, if a student misses 3 of those periods, that is 50% of the school day. And if this occurs at least 18 days throughout the year, they will be considered as chronically absent. To address truancy within our district, we establish clear procedures. We conduct ongoing staff training. We implemented a monitoring process, established partnerships, and we are looking forward to celebrating our successes monthly. Our truancy checklist was modified this summer to clearly outline each step of the truancy process, along with the required documentation and systems of support. So looking at our truancy checklist, it details for our schools the exact steps if a student misses 3 days or 5 days, exactly what to do, and the potential systems of support that they can tap into as well. To ensure the fidelity of our processes, we have ongoing training through monthly work sessions with the attendance clerks. We have monthly newsletters with how-to videos and new attendance clerk work sessions so that we can meet with them in smaller group sessions to address their need. Most recently, We conducted Truancy Audits within every school. The audits are conducted monthly, and during the audits, all documentation is reviewed. We review parent letters, log entries, attendance intervention plans, correspondence with support systems such as counselors, social workers, and the administration, just to ensure that we are on track with our truancy process. One of the positives about conducting the audits is that it gives us an opportunity to discuss the needs of students, because we realize that poor attendance is a symptom of a greater issue. And to help meet the needs of families, we have partnered with several organizations. We've partnered with the Regional Community Liaison, with the Office of Child Health and Wellbeing at the Department of Social Services. Within this partnership, they assist us with contacting parents and providing resources to help remove the barriers that may be associated with the student absenteeism. We have also partnered with Bob Stevens with the Department of Education to assist us with refining our multi-tiered systems of support processes in the areas of academics, behavior, and social emotional learning. We realize that often students develop poor attendance because they experience a deficiency or disengagement within one of those areas. The Federation of Families helps us to associate parents and students with peer groups that are centered on helping them to meet their identified needs within their families, and those needs, whatever those needs are, that may be contributing to the student's poor attendance. An Engage SC is a partnership that was established through the State Department that focuses on personalizing the support for disengaged students through the use of an academic coach. Ultimately, our goal is to provide families with the support that is needed in order to increase student attendance. Currently, at all our schools across the district, teams are conducting intervention meetings to identify the root causes and establishing a plan of support for students. We are also currently collecting data so that we can begin our school recognitions in November. Schools will be awarded with gold, silver, or bronze level certificates according to the categories listed below. With teacher attendance, we are looking to ensure that at all of our schools, teachers are taking attendance daily. It is that teacher attendance that will ensure the accuracy of all of our reports. We will also be awarding schools based on their truancy documentation, just trying to make sure that we are providing parents and students with the support that they need, because as I mentioned earlier, poor attendance is a symptom. It is not the diagnosis. And we will also be rewarding students on their truancy rate. We are looking forward to the rates decreasing with each check of the truancy report. Despite the many challenges that we are seeing within our schools, we are proud of the work that they are doing to support our students and families. My contact information is listed below, and at this time, I will answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any? Yes.
Do we have the data yet on our school? I didn't see the actual Sumter district numbers here.
Did you get a question?
What is our truancy report card for Sumter?
Okay, and so truancy isn't reported on the school report card. On the last school report cards, our chronic absenteeism rate was 11.9%. But looking at previous years, the truancy rate for 2019 school year was around 21%. Last year, the truancy rate increased slightly to about 28.9%. And this year, as of today, our truancy rate is 11.7.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Addison. At this time, I ask Ms. Cheryl Ray, or shall I say Ms. Cheryl Creel Ray, who is the Director of Early Childhood Education, to present to us. This is as a result of conversations that we, again, have engaged in with the board regarding what we're doing at the foundational level for our youngest learners as we are preparing them for school entry or kindergarten readiness. So, Mrs. Ray.
Thank you, Chairwoman Dr. Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Baker, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox, allowing me to share our goals for pre-kindergarten for the 2021-2022 school year. Next slide. CERDEP, which stands for Child Early Reading Development Education Program, is made possible through the Read to Succeed Act, and it funds all-day pre-kindergarten in Sumter School District. And the following are the registration guidelines. Each child must be 4 years old on or before September 1st. They must have a birth certificate. They must have Medicaid or verification of household income. They must have proof of residency and have a current immunization record. Students may qualify after July 1 if they do not meet Dial 4 requirements by meeting expectations on 2 of the 3 subscales. With funding allocations, we are allotted $4,800 per student. 424 students are currently enrolled in the program. We received $2,035,200 from the state based on current enrollment. $2,860,056.02 is the total CERDEP salaries for teachers and paraprofessionals. And we currently have 25 teachers and 25 paraprofessionals. The district supplements the CERDEP deficits from the general fund. Data analysis and teacher feedback have been my focus since being hired in January of 2021. And a very important component that needed to be considered was the KRA data, which stands for Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. Out of 13 schools, 2 exceeded the standards for the statewide average of 26.8%. The remaining schools were below the state average. Approximately 14% of our students entering kindergarten who were in our pre-K program demonstrated readiness on the KRA assessment. I've also included a bar graph for you to reference as you study the comparison of schools. New implementations and expectations have required a closer look at our focus for curriculum this year. We now have a revised standards-based progress report. Monthly meetings are curriculum-based and include developmentally delayed teachers and the specialized education elementary coordinator. There are also weekly newsletters emphasizing curriculum as the focus. There is a plan for professional development with instructional assistants, a new mascot, plans for collaboration with pre-K centers in Sumter County, protocols and procedures for students with specialized instructions. There is an emphasis on differentiated instruction and meeting students where they are academically and socially. The expectations for curriculum are that there is an emphasis on the South Carolina Early Learning Standards. Their progress report is used as a reporting tool. Big Day is the curriculum for reading. Math is incorporated through explorations, investigations, and hands-on activities. Daily social emotional learning activities, small group instruction, professional development and expectations for instructional assistants, formative and summative assessments, an emphasis on stations and centers, plans for a new reading curriculum through grant funding. I am proud to announce that we now have a mascot that promotes our program, and it is a tool that we will use to enhance students' cognitive, language, and social emotional development. This will be used as our logo as we promote our program in December through a direct link on our website, social media, local businesses, and the newspaper. The following are the goals that we have as a team this year that will hopefully, and we feel very confident in, that will enhance teaching and learning. The emphasis has been on and will continue to be on ongoing collaboration, standards-based focus, professional development with formative and summative assessments, emphasis on small group instruction, emphasis on social emotional learning, collaboration and professional development with instructional assistants. If you have further questions, I'll be happy to answer those at this time.
Dr. Hill?
Thank you. Ms. Ray, going back to slide number 3, if we may, the 2021 data, the KRA overall.
Yes, sir.
So these tests were administered at the end of preschool, or as these kids were coming into preschool?
These are as they are coming into preschool.
So,
this is the data that we have.
okay. All right, so my question is back in the day, you know, we had parent workshops. And because when I look at these scores, these kids have not been in our schools before. Many of them have not been in any school before. And I feel like that that certainly what they're doing in our schools is gonna benefit them. But when I see some of these numbers, it tells me that some of these children have not been getting what they need from age 1, from birth to 4. So my question is can we look as a district, this doesn't need to be answered tonight, but this is something for us to think about, is can we not, as we move forward, look at trying to provide some training for parents, some opportunities for parents to gain some skills in what to do at home to help these children be better prepared when they come to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hilton.
Yes, sir, absolutely, that was a very good point. And one of the things that I think in starting that and in starting those conversations, I think you're exactly right, that that's something that we really need to focus on. But we felt like too, that reaching out to those centers in the community and working with them and working with parents together would be part of what we could do to help them as they prepare them for school. So yes, sir, you're exactly right. And that is something that would be very good advice for us as we move forward and collaborate together.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Creel Ray.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. At this time, if we can move to 4.3 for the Office of Finance, updates on general fund revenue and expenditures through June 30th, 2021. And I'd ask Ms. Miller to engage in this conversation.
Yes, good evening, Chairwoman Dr. Barbara Jackson, Vice Chairman Dr. Frank Baker, board members, and Superintendent Dr. Martin Knox. This evening, we have the June 30th, 2021 revenue and expenditures for the general fund as of October 18th, 2021. There was no change in the revenue from last month's report. Projected revenue is $129,171,894. Moving on to page 2, we have posted the one-time retention stipend along with a few minor adjustments, and the overall projected change in expenditures is approximately $150,000 less than last month's projection, which brings the total projected revenue or total projected expenditure to $124,519,954. There was no change in the other financing sources from last month's projections. The overall change in fund balance as of June 30th, 2021 is $7,252,353, which will bring the general fund balance to $32,626,731, which is slightly over 3 months of operating expenditures. Are there any questions on the June information before we move over to September? Okay, moving on to the September figures. There's no significant changes made to the projected revenue. As such, revenue is projected to be $129,768,534. Moving on to expenditures, we continue to evaluate payroll projections and will adjust when values are more solid as we continue to seek employees to fill our vacancies. Salary figures could vary significantly. As mentioned previously, outsourced instructional services, which falls under Code 311, are more costly than salaries and benefits of an employee. We are projecting to go over budget in that category, which will hopefully be offset some by the coming in under budget in salaries. At this time, we are projecting a loss of $497,195 for the year. But again, this amount will fluctuate as we proceed through the year. Do you have any questions on that before switching over to capital projects? Moving on to capital projects, you have funds 519 through 527. And if you have any questions on that, I'll be happy to take those at this time.
Are there any questions on capital projects? No questions. No.
Right, that concludes the finance section.
And that concludes the final section of Superintendent's Report for number 4.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Martinos, and thank all of you that have been with us presenting tonight. We do appreciate you and value your input. Thank you so much. Yes.
Mr. Cato, I just wanted to take the opportunity, I think this is the first time the full board has actually seen Mr. Cato. Mr. Cato is our Director of Facilities, so I just wanted to make sure you could associate a name with a face. So good evening, Mr. Cato, and thank you for being on this evening.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We're now down to the executive session. And while there is not a set time for us for this portion of the meeting, we want to invite in-person guests as well as our online viewers to join us again when we return to open session. If you're unable to be with us at that time, please continue to be safe and have a pleasant week. Trustees, is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to enter into executive session for the receipt of legal advice where the legal advice relates to pending, threatened, or potential claims. Receipt of legal advice pertaining to contractual matter. Discussion of negotiations incident to propose contractual arrangement. Discussion of a negotiation incident to propose proper contractual matters.
Second.
It has been moved and second that the board enters into executive session for receipt of legal advice, where the legal advice is related to pending, threatened, or potential claims. Receipt of legal advice pertaining to contractual matters. Discussion of negotiations incident to propose contractual arrangements, and discussion of negotiation incident to propose property contractual matters. Is there any discussion? If not, please cast your vote.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong place. Forgive me.
Was it a yes vote?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously, and the board is now in executive session.
The in-person facilitation of realignment community meetings for the realignment project.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and second that the board approve the in-person facilitation for the realignment community project, realignment project. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote.
That's unanimous. Dr. Jackson, 7.3.
Okay, the motion passes. All right, the next is 7.3, policy amendment, first reading, ADA, district goals and objectives, ADD, base covering, IHIC, social studies, education, and KLGA, school resource officers. Trustees, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that the board approve first readings of amendments to policies ADA, district goals and objectives, ADD, face covering, IHAC, social studies education, and KLGA, school resource officers.
Second.
The motion has been made and second to approve the first reading of amendment to policies ADA, ADD, IHAC, and KLGA. Is there any discussion? Please cast your vote.
Okay, that passes.
The motion passes. We're now down to the consent agenda. With no objection, the consent agenda will stand approved. Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. I'd like to thank you for being with us this evening. We are excited to have you join us on this journey forward, and please continue to take the necessary precautions in order to remain safe. With no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 9:35.